To start off, I would like you first of all to see video that kind of pull us into understanding why the movie Selma is important. The first thing, ladies and gentlemen, that we must understand, from the Gosho, the gift of rice, it says they look at secular matters in terms of Buddhism, whereas the Lotus Sutra teaches us that secular matters are the entirety of Buddhism. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you see a movie like Selma, based upon the Lotus Sutra, that means the movie Selma, which is a secular movie, is the entirety of Buddhism. But what I would like you to see, I would like you to first see the words of the rapper Common, and I want you to hear what he and John Legend says, what they say about the movie, how the movie and them learning about people who fight for freedom, justice, and equality has changed their lives and given them a sense of humanity. Let's first of all look at the Golden Globe Awards presentation for the Best Picture, because the song Glory won Best Original Score. Let's look at that, and then we'll come back and go a little further in our lecture.
The nominations in this category are as complex and diverse as the films they represent. Here are the nominations for Best Original Score in a Motion Picture.
From Big...
And the Golden Globes goes to, but of course, Glory, Selma.
This is the first win and first nomination for John Legend and Common. They win their Golden Globe tonight for the music and lyrics of Glory in Selma.
John, you want to hold this?
I want to thank God and the Hollywood Foreign Press. The first day I stepped on the set of Selma, I began to feel like this was bigger than a movie. As I got to know the people of the civil rights movement, I realized I am the hopeful black woman who was denied her right to vote. I am the caring white supporter, killed on the front lines of freedom. I am the unarmed black kid who maybe needed a hand, but instead was given a bullet. I am the two fallen police officers, murdered in the line of duty. Selma has awakened my humanity, and I thank you, Ava. Ava, you are a superhero. You use the art to elevate us all and bring us together. I want to thank CAA. I want to thank Paramount for having the heart to make this movie, and Plan B, Jeremy, you know we love hip hop, and we brought music and art and soul here. Thank you, Plan B, Oprah, for what you do for the people from the past and creating for the future. We look to the future, and we want to create a better world. Now is our time to change the world. Selma is now.
I want to thank this man. He called me up and he said, John, I want you to help me write a song for this film, and I'm so honored. I was brought on at the last minute, but I'm so honored to be a part of this amazing film that honors such amazing people that did great work and is so connected to what's happening right now. We still are in solidarity with those who are out there fighting for justice right now, and we're so grateful to write this song, hopefully as an inspiration to them. Thank you very much.
And let us explain this from the standpoint of Buddhism. The second chapter of the Lotus Sutra reads that only Buddhas understand the true entity of all phenomena. It says, that is, the true entity of all phenomena are the 10 aspects. That is, the appearance, the nature, that the entity, the power, the influence, the inherent cause, the relationship, the latent effect, manifest effect, and consistency from the beginning to the end. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that may not mean anything, but that is what the Lotus Sutra teaches. The Lotus Sutra teaches us that there are 3,000 worlds in a momentary state of existence. And there are 10 worlds, and there are 10 worlds in each world, which is 100 worlds, times 10 aspects, the 1,000 worlds, times the 3 realms. Now, let's break this down to where you can understand this. Now, in 1965, African Americans were struggling to vote. They were like 50% of the population, but only 1% was able to go and vote. And there were people who helped these people. There were people who risked their lives to help bring change in America. Not only did the people in Selma bring change in America, they started a worldwide movement that brought change to the world. Now, let's bring this back into Buddhism, ladies and gentlemen, and let me show you how the movie Selma is a Buddhist movie. Now, one of the things that I want to make clear, that the people in those Japanese organizations like the SGI and Nichiren Shoshu and Nichiren Shu, they're not going to promote a movie like Selma, because the movie like Selma, that is what true Buddhism is, because true Buddhism is actually freedom, justice, and equality. The history of Buddhism is equality. Buddhism is the first religion in the world that's based on equality, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's get into Selma and let's begin and let's show you how it works. Now, the movie Selma, let's start off with the 10 aspects. It is an appearance. Now, the question is, how did the movie Selma appear? What is the nature of that appearance? Now, ladies and gentlemen, please understand why this movie is so important. Understand that Dr. Martin Luther King is one of the most iconic figures in the history of America. Almost on every state and city in America, there's almost a Martin Luther King street. Just a few days coming up, you're going to have the Dr. Martin Luther King birthday celebration. Now, with all of this in mind, why is it that one of the greatest heroes in American history and culture, there has never been a movie, and since his death about 50 years ago, there has never been a movie, a major motion picture at the theaters about the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. Ladies and gentlemen, it has never happened. Now the question is, from Buddhism, how did its appearance happen? It happened, ladies and gentlemen, because there was a condition of equality. There's a person by the name of Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey, ladies and gentlemen, understood, and she understands the importance of history. She understands the importance of equality. She understands the importance of freedom. Now, Oprah Winfrey was the person most responsible for the movie Selma. Now, why did they call the movie Selma instead of calling the movie King? Now, one of the most hurting things about the movie Selma is that we have a generation of people who are brought up, who are raised, and because there's a lack of telling stories about black people, they don't know the story of what happened in Selma and the historical relevance of how important Selma is to us, not only as African Americans, but as humanity, period. Selma is very important. They did not want to make a movie about Dr. Martin Luther King because the movement was not about Dr. Martin Luther King only. Martin Luther King was only the voice. He was only one part of the civil rights movement. He was the voice. He was the face. But the real struggle, or the real cause of freedom, justice, and equality was the people who stood up and who fought. Now, Oprah Winfrey got this movie started because there's equality. She has the money to do it. She has the power to do it. It's very difficult, ladies and gentlemen, getting such a movie made. The first person I want you to look at, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look at Ava DuVernay. Now, this woman, I think, wasn't born until 1972, but this woman, look at her. She is a proud African-American woman. She is a filmmaker. And what she was able to do, or what she understood, ladies and gentlemen, she understood the heart and soul of the African-American community. She is not just a person who made a movie to get rich, but she is a person that understands the importance of having an altruistic nature. She is what we call a Bodhisattva, because a Bodhisattva are those people who have an altruistic nature. They are the Bodhisttavas of the earth. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you really want to understand what the movie Selma is about, the movie Selma is about the Bodhisattvas of the earth. Because it is the Bodhisattvas of the earth that help to change the world. Now, what I want you to first of all do, I want you to meet a Bodhisattva. I want you to meet someone. The first person I want you to meet and listen to is Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte is with the great singer Tony Bennett. Now, Harry Belafonte was a man that during the civil rights struggle, he went beyond himself, but he understood the struggle and he supported Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, in 1965, white people would kill you. If you were to help other African Americans, you were considered a nigger lover, and some white people did lose their life in Selma. The people who left their life, ladies and gentlemen, they weren't some Japanese or Asian priest sitting in the mountains meditating. The real Bodhisattva is the person who comes out to fight for freedom, justice, and equality. That is who the real Bodhisattva is. The real Bodhisattva is not some Daisaku Ikeda who is breaking the Guinness Book of World Records for getting college degrees. But the real Bodhisattva are those people who get on the front lines. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look at Harry Belafonte and listen to him tell the story, and we're going to come back and tell you more why this lecture, Selma, of the movie Selma, Buddhism, is important. Let's listen to Harry Belafonte and Tony Bennett speak a little bit, and we'll come back and we'll put a closure on this lecture.
Selma was different, but they were willing to kill, burn, bomb, destroy. So to ask artists and people to go into Selma was a whole different game.
Harry Belafonte remembers the backdrop for a major flashpoint in the civil rights movement, the Selma to Montgomery marches in 1965. 50 miles had to be covered, but the real obstacle was hate. Not long after 600 marchers began on Sunday, March 7th, police brutally beat them, driving them back to Selma. When Bloody Sunday happened, and then Dr. King decided to march again after it, what was the mood?
The mood was anger. The mood was rebellious. The question is, what do we do in the face of this kind of rage and this kind of mayhem? And the bottom line was that we'll go back as often as necessary.
Belafonte, enlisted by Dr. King to bring artists into the movement, convinced the likes of Joan Baez, Paul Newman, and Marlon Brando. But one of his first calls was to old friend and supporter Tony Bennett.
Well, I didn't want to do it. But then he told me what went down, what was going down, how some blacks were burned, had gasoline thrown on them, and they were burned. When I heard that, I said, I'll go with you.
In that black-white divide, white faces would see your face. What do you think they thought about you?
Thought you were a goddamn traitor.
There was a spirit that we decided we're just going to march right through it, no matter what.
After a federal court affirmed the right to march against the government and National Guard troops were ordered to protect marchers, protesters grew from 600 to 25,000. To rally the crowd, the artists came forth, but one problem.
We found out we didn't have a stage, and somebody came up with a funeral parlor. And how many casks were there?
I think the number was about 50 to 80 caskets.
50 to 80 coffins.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that the stage was built on coffins?
Well, it was different.
To say the least. Yet singing on top of coffins may be apt metaphor for the marches, and they succeeded. Later that August, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Its purpose is not to divide, but to end divisions.
Change that Bennett could feel even in the place that scared him the most.
Many years later, I went back to Selma just as an engagement, and I was pretty concerned about it. I wonder how I'm going to be treated. It changed that area. They were much more human, much more civilized about just accepting a good soul. It made me feel like it worked. It really worked. That march worked.
But that work is unfinished, says Belafonte, and he wonders if today's black celebrities will take up the cause. You talked about the next generation or the current generation. And where's the new Harry Belafonte?
Never before in the history of this country has there ever been a pool of celebrities more numerous than we have today, and never have the black people in this country been less spoken for by a community of celebrities that in the snap of a finger could say and do so much, who have opted to do nothing.
Why?
And they're so busy becoming hedonistic about the harvest and the material successes that they have received as a result of the success of that mission, that they have forgotten that there was ever a mission.
His message is clear. The march is in the past, but the movement for fairness under law for all, for justice, must continue.
Civil rights is a constant. It's never of the past. It's with you all the time. Every society, every millennium, every decade is going to need its vigilant watchers of the democratic process.
Now that you saw Harry Belafonte and his story about humanity, how he wants to encourage others who have made a success to spend their lives to help others who are not as fortunate. Ladies and gentlemen, what you see in Harry Belafonte is that you see a Bodhisattva. What you see in Ava DuVernay is a Bodhisattva. What you see in Oprah Winfrey is a Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is not some Japanese leader who sits around and just chant. Let me tell you a story. In the 1980s, I watched with pain when Daisaku Ikeda changed all the black leaders. They brought in Japanese leaders, and they set up a Buddhism not about freedom, justice, and equality, but they set up a Buddhism that made Daisaku Ikeda a god. They set up a Buddhism that was not about the true Buddhism. Daisaku Ikeda wrote in his book, The Living Buddha, that the Buddha was an Aryan. The Buddha was not an Aryan. The Buddha was a man of African descent. Look at all the ancient icons. All the icons of the Buddha is that of a black man. You see the black hair. The largest statue of a Buddha in the world, the largest indoor statue, is in the ancient capital in Japan, in Nara, in a temple called Todaji. Now, the SGI hid these things. Nichiren Shoshu hid these things. Like in 1974, when I became a Nichiren Buddhist, a priest by the name of Reverend Iwaki Gojikai me or inducted me into the Buddhist religion. Then 30 years later, his son comes to Memphis, Tennessee, and becomes a priest. I asked the priest by the name of Reverend Iwaki, his son. He was just a little baby when I started Buddhism, yet they made this baby over me. This baby comes to our hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, and tells me, let's leave culture out of Buddhism. And the reason he wanted to leave culture out of Buddhism, because he did not want us to learn Buddhism. He wanted us to learn Japanese culture that make the priest superior, because Nichiren Shoshu has a caste system. And I fought against the caste system because I grew up in the struggle. Now, I want you to understand, in 2008, ladies and gentlemen, it was the 40th anniversary of the death of Dr. Martin Luther King. And Reverend Iwaki had just came into Chicago as our new priest. And I asked him to please do a prayer for Dr. Martin Luther King, and that the whole world was in Memphis, Tennessee. This priest, ladies and gentlemen, would come to Memphis, Tennessee, and conspire with the black leaders. He taught the black leaders, don't deal with Anthony Elmore, because we want to deal with only Buddhism, and we don't want to deal with this black stuff. This man did some dirty stuff to me, because he did not want us to teach African Americans to find a sense of pride, find a sense of culture, but most important, to arouse and awaken your Buddha nature. So this priest in the Nichiren Shoshu set did not want me to engage and bringing out the humanity of other people, or to tell them about their humanity. But I want you to see pictures. Now, when you go see the movie Selma, you will see the person. You will see John Lewis in the movie. You would see a picture of me and John Lewis just 2 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. I was in Washington, D.C., and my friend Congressman Steve Cohen and I had a bet. I told Congressman Cohen that it was James Bevel who called for the march on Washington, and the congressman said it was someone else. And so in order to see who was going to win the bet, the congressman said, well, let's go talk to John Lewis. And I was at Capitol Hill, and there I was with the great iconic hero, John Lewis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is something so special about John Lewis. If you are ever in the company of John Lewis, this man has a sense of peace. He has a sense of, it's hard to explain, but he is a great individual. And when we met with John Lewis and we asked a question about Bevel, John Lewis said, listen, Bevel and I were roommates in college. And we were in seminary school. I didn't know John Lewis was a minister that went to seminary school. And he and James Bevel, they got together. They started SNCC, which is the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee. And they were with SNCC. And they were the people who helped change the world. They were the youth who did the sit-ins in Nashville and fought for voter rights. They were the people who dedicated themselves. Now, James Bevel is the man who called for the march from Selma to Montgomery. Even though he was played by the actor Common, it was James Bevel who called for that march. Now, let me tie the story into a Buddhist story. In 2013, I left the Nichiren Shoshu religion, and I decided that I would contact my friend Chaka, who I introduced to Buddhism 20 years ago. And I said, Shaka, let me learn about Nichiren Shu. Since Nichiren Shu had an African-American priest whose name is Muke Shonin, who you see here. And I was thinking that since they had an African-American priest, they were progressive. And they said, we said, what name are we going to call ourselves? Well, let's call ourselves the Memphis Proud Black Buddhists. And when Muke Shonin found out that we're going to call this the Memphis Proud Black Buddhists, she says, oh no, you are starting a new religion. You cannot call this a religion. You cannot call this a Sangha. You are starting a new religion and the white people are going to get upset. And Shaka wrote me a nasty note, told me I could kiss his ass, and I was not welcome to his house anymore. So ladies and gentlemen, what happened was, there I was. I saw the disingenuousness in the SGI. I saw it in Nichiren Shoshu. I saw it in Nichiren Shu. And there I was, ladies and gentlemen, without a Buddhist organization. I was hurt. I says, wow, isn't there somebody who is honest? Isn't there somebody who really understands the heart and soul of the Buddha? But ladies and gentlemen, I thought about something. Shaka said in his letter to me, he says, your knowledge of Buddhism is shallow. And I said, yes, Shaka, my knowledge of Buddhism is shallow, but Anthony Elmore is not a shallow person. And after chanting to this Gohanzan, I understood, ladies and gentlemen, that in 1971, after the death of Dr. Martin Luther King, the man who started, the man who called for the march from Selma to Montgomery was a man by the name of James Bevel. And after Dr. Martin Luther King, you can see James Bevel, ladies and gentlemen. He was one of the pallbearers because he was very close to Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, in the movie, I was disappointed in the way James Bevel was portrayed, but that's okay. But I had a chance, ladies and gentlemen, when I was a youth. I heard James Bevel speak. And James Bevel, ladies and gentlemen, was a very colorful speaker like Dr. Martin Luther King, very charismatic. And he was the man who worked on the front lines. He was the one who went to Mississippi and registered voters. Now, he was the man who risked his life. He and his wife, Diana Nash. He was the one that did all the work in Selma. He was the one who trained the people. And in 1971, ladies and gentlemen, when I met James Bevel, I was so inspired by James Bevel that I quit college to join the movement. I want you to first of all look at a scene where in my 1988 movie, The Contemporary Gladiator, I meet James Bevel. And I want you to see a scene where I meet James Bevel. Let's first of all, let's look at that scene where I, as a 19-year-old student, quit college to join the movement. This is my life story. Let's look at that first and then we'll come back.
Brothers and sisters, we must understand that we're in charge of our own destinies. We're in this world from the womb to the tomb. And the white man is out of order. He's out of order with the universe. And anytime anybody trying to restrict the freedom of others, they are totally out of harmony. Because true freedom is the consciousness of the universe.
I really enjoyed your speech, man. I go to that university, I take sociology and psychology, man. I ain't never learned nothing like this before.
Well, son, stick with me. I'll teach you more in 2 months than they can teach you in 2 years at the university. Stick with me, and God bless you for coming.
What I also want you to see, I want you to see a video that took place, I think it's 1995, 96, at the Million Man March. The man by the name of James Bevel, who helped to train me in the world of black consciousness. James Bevel was one of the founders. He and Minister Louis Farrakhan, they came up with the idea of the Million Man March. And I want you to hear and listen to James Bevel's argument about the Million Man March. This man in 1971, ladies and gentlemen, taught Buddhism. Even though he was not Buddhist, but he taught Buddhism. Because a Bodhisattva has nothing to do with Buddhism. A Bodhisattva has something to do with your life condition. Let's look at a few scenes and meet James Bevel, and we're going to come back and bring this lecture to a close.
And so if we do not have atonement, we cannot be a people. We cannot move forward because our future is determined by the decisions we make and the actions we take. And if we make wrong decisions and take wrong actions, our outcome will be wrong. But when we make right decisions and when we take right actions, our outcome will be right. And so we don't have an oppressor. We must move forward scientifically. There are 2 things necessary for people to move forward. They must have science and they must have integrity. You must have science and you must have integrity. You cannot move forward based on what another man does or does not do. You must move forward based on your science and your integrity. When we atone, we do not beg anybody for anything. We go to God in prayer and we pray the prayer, Our Father, theology, church work. Thy kingdom come, sociology, government work. Give us this day our daily bread, ecology, business work. Forgive us as we forgive, psychology work, clinic work. Lead us not to temptation, biology, homework. Deliver us from evil, anthropology, schoolwork. When we pray, then we can mold our own future. And we do not beg. And so we go forward.
Now that you saw James Bevel, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to understand about the movie Selma. The movie Selma is not just about Selma. It's not just about Dr. Martin Luther King. But the movie Selma, ladies and gentlemen, is about the Bodhisattvas of the earth. That's talked about in the Lotus Sutra. It's the Bodhisattvas of the earth. When people rise up and bring out their own humanity, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a Bodhisattva of the earth.
And where bully boy segregationist Sheriff Jim Clark and his deputized citizens posse rounded up civil rights activists using Gestapo tactics and cattle prods. SNCC's John Lewis was among the more than 2,000 demonstrators jailed in the first months of 1965.
If we're wrong, why don't you arrest us? Why don't you get out?
The Reverend C.T. Vivian, an organizer for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, led the Selma campaign.
We're willing to be beaten for democracy, and you misuse democracy in the street. You beat people bloody in order that they will not have the privilege to vote. You beat me in the side and then hide your blows. Well, go on. No, I don't need to leave. We have come to register to vote. And you must realize that this is a national issue. It's not a Selma issue. It's not an Alabama issue. This is a national issue. Whenever anyone does not have the right to vote, then every man is hurt.
What I want you to understand about the movie Selma. The movie Selma is not just about Selma. It's not just about Dr. Martin Luther King. But the movie Selma, ladies and gentlemen, is about the Bodhisattvas of the earth that's talked about in the Lotus Sutra. It's the Bodhisattvas of the earth when people rise up and bring out their own humanity. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a Bodhisattva of the earth. And we who are with the proud Black Buddhist World Association, we are the proud Black Buddhists. We are not some organization calling ourselves in name, but a Bodhisattva is one who fights for freedom, justice, and equality. They don't necessarily have to be a Buddhist, but whether you're black or white or whatever color you are, when you fight for freedom, justice, and equality, and you fight for humanity, you are a Bodhisattva of the earth. Go see the movie Selma. That's what it's about. And I'm Anthony of Elmore. We are the best suited. We are the proud Black Buddhists. Thank you very much.
Time, mother hovers, they don't think my cousin them time, mother hovers, they don't think my cousin them time, mother hovers, they don't think my cousin them time, mother hovers, they don't think my cousin them time, mother hovers, they don't think my cousin. Buddhism is a religion of equality. The Japanese practice of Buddhism of superiority. Black people, the Buddhist said called the SCI, them black people are black traitors. They deny black history and worship a Japanese called Daisaku Ikeda. I'm the one that said the Ikeda is wrong. The Buddha wasn't no Aryan. Daisaku Ikeda don't teach no true Buddhism. He teaches Japanese nationalism. Black Buddhists need to see the movie called Selma. Perhaps these blacks can get a sense of black pride. They need to see how those who fought for equality laid down their lives and died. It does not matter what color you be. True Buddhism is about human equality. Let me tell you a true respect fact. There's nothing wrong with being proud Buddhist and black.